God, thank you so much for this time to come together to worship you, Lord. I just ask that you can speak through me, that you can keep me from coughing, Lord. I just ask that we can learn something today, Lord, and that we can apply it to our lives. We love you so much. In your name we pray. Amen. So I was going into my mom's closet one day because I was trying to find 2 pairs of socks, 2 different socks, because I needed to make like sock puppets for like a craft in 2nd grade. And I wanted to get like a pink fluffy one and then another one. You know, you could put eyeballs and stuff on it. It's going to look cool. So I'm like going through her drawers. Now, we all know that when you go through someone's drawers, you're going to find stuff that you like weren't expecting to find. We see it in movies all the time where people like hide stuff in their underwear drawer. That's like typically where a robber goes first when they're going to go like steal some money. So I'm going through the drawers and I find something that was like totally not expected. There was a clear Ziploc bag. Inside this Ziploc bag is 3 more clear Ziploc bags. And each one of those 3 bags, had a name written on it. My name, my sister's name, and my brother's name. And inside each of those bags were real teeth. Yeah. 1, I was disgusted and like, what the heck, my mom's crazy. But then 2, I realized in that horrible, dreadful moment that the tooth fairy was not real. It was horrible. I know, guys. If you didn't know, sorry. All right, bring it back, guys. I know, you're a chatty group today. But guys, in that moment, one of these things that I've heard of so long that people kept telling me as a kid, just like poof, was gone. That existence of the tooth fairy real was gone. And you guys, here's the thing. There's a lot of stuff that we know that isn't real. There's a lot of stuff that we believe that isn't real. And sometimes it's just because people say it. There's this phrase that if you're told something enough times, you're sure to start believing it. Just because you hear it, just because people say it. And so I want to play a game with you guys. If you've been to service already this weekend, I want you to try to trick the people around you. But I'm going to say a phrase of something that we've heard a lot. And I want you to put your hand up like this and make a sassy face if you think it's true. Or put your hand down and make another different sassy face if you think it's false. And we're going to find out, is it true because people just say it? Or is it true because it's actually true? You guys ready? Okay, right. First one. The wall of China can be seen from space. Is it true or false? Go ahead, everyone with me. All right, next one. Sushi means raw fish. 1 human year is equivalent to 7 dog years. True or false? Different parts of your tongue produce different tastes. Christopher Columbus discovered America. When you eat sugar, you get hyper. Swallowing gum stays in your body for 7 years. I hope that's not true because I swallow my gum. It's bad. Don't do it. You can catch a cold by being cold. You'll get cancer if you stand too close to a microwave. If you eat a lot of carrots, you'll have great eyesight. And the last one, coffee stunts your growth. Okay, let me give you the answers. All right, here we go. Shh. All of those are false. Yes. All of those are false. And guys, they're false in some way or another. Either it's part of that statement was true, but not fully true, or that's not actually the reason why it stunts your growth. And here's the thing, guys. I can explain after service. You can come ask me, and I'll give you all the reasons. I have them all written down of why those aren't true. But you guys, we believe those things simply because people say them. We've heard it enough times that we're like, oh, yeah, like gum stays in your body for 7 years. But we've never actually tried to look it up. We haven't looked in an encyclopedia. We haven't Googled it. We just believe it because people say it. And guys, today we're going to be looking at a story in the Bible that a lot of us just believe is happy and wonderful and like butterfly, rainbows, awesome, just because of what people say. The thing is, a lot of us haven't taken the time to look at the truth of it, haven't to look at what's the real facts, the unedited, the unfiltered, the adult version of this story, this real event that happened. And so we're in this series called Throwback, and what we're doing is we're throwing back to stories of the Bible that if you've grown up in church, you've heard these stories before. If you haven't grown up in church, you're new to this whole Christianity church thing, that's awesome. We're glad you're here. But you've probably heard of this story in some form or another. They're in children's books. You just hear them around. They're told a lot. And so last week, Travis came and he talked about the fall of Adam and Eve. See, God created the world. He said it was all good. Then he created mankind. And then he said, hey, like, you can eat from anything you want, but you can't eat from this tree. And then they did that, and they disobeyed him. And then there was sin. Sin is missing the mark of perfection. So they missed it. And then after that, Adam and Eve are kicked out of the garden. They have Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel. It's the first murder in the Bible. And then 1,600 years of people go by, and we end up where we are looking at today in Genesis 6, starting at verse 1. Are you guys ready? All right, let's do this. See, at the very end of chapter 5, starting at verse 32, it says, after Noah was 500 years, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So we're being introduced to this man named Noah. After everything that's happened in this story, 1,600 years of go by, and we hear Noah. Here's the story. When men began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were heroes of men, men of renown. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said, I will wipe mankind whom I've created from the face of the earth, men and animals, the creatures that move along the ground, the birds of the air, for I'm grieved that I made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. This is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, and for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. Guys, the story about God destroying everyone because they're evil and they're violent is not this typical Sunday school story with rainbows and butterflies. It's not a children's story. It's not this thing that we like to color in a coloring book or we like to have as a bath toy. I have a picture for you guys. A lot of times we just think it's this happy thing because of these coloring pages and these bath toys. You can put that up for me, Scott. Or not. But you guys know what I mean. Yeah. So that's what we think of as Noah's Ark. We think the story of Noah's Ark is this awesome, cutesy little thing. But we just read that God's going to destroy everything alive. Guys, this is not a children's story. If it was put into a movie, it'd have a rating of an R or X, and it would say viewer discretion advised. That happens before movies. It says that. I'm like, hey, I don't know if you want to watch this movie. Like, you, as the viewer, your discretion's advised. I don't know if you want to see some of the stuff that's going to happen. I don't know if you're going to want to, like, witness what's going on. Well, this is what that story is, because it's the most violent thing, real event that happens in the Bible, and it's happening at a time that's the most evil. See, we just read in Genesis 1-7, it talked about how these sons of God and daughters of man, this evil going on. See, the people were giving into their own desires. They were being ungodly. They were giving into sexual sin, into lying, into murder, into stealing. Like, evil was running rampant. It said that every single inclination of their heart, everything that they're inclined to do from their heart was only evil all the time. For 1,600 years. We know what 1,600 years because of all the genealogy that's written in the Bible. We looked at that. 1,600 years of evil, only evil, all the time. And guys, I think about this and I think about this story and I'm like, why would God create us then? Because, I mean, he's God. He knows everything. He knows what we're going to do before we even do it. Not that he controls it. He just knows that we're going to do it. So why would he even create us if he knows that we're going to be only evil all the time? And I think it's key for us to understand this about why. It's key for us in our own life, but it's also key for this story of Noah's Ark. It's the first thing you write down is to understand that I have a choice. You need to understand for yourself that I have a choice. We as human beings have a choice. That's your first thing to write down. God created mankind with the ability to choose. And the reason for that is love. If you want someone to love you, you can't force them. That's called slavery or being a robot. See, God created us with the ability to love him, to choose him, to obey him. But with the ability to love, the ability to choose also comes with the ability to not love, to not choose, to not obey. God's people in this time, Noah's people, were given that choice. We know that people have chosen wrong. Last week, Travis talked about Adam and Eve, how they chose not to love, how not to obey. They ate from that fruit that they weren't supposed to. And God gave Noah's people of the time a choice to turn from their evil and wicked ways, even though for 1,600 years they're evil all the time. And we see this choice through this man named Noah, and specifically through this thing called the ark. So we're going to continue in our story at verse 14. So God, he just said, hey, I'm going to destroy the world. People suck. This is what you're going to do, Noah. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you're to build it. The ark is to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof for it and finish the ark to within 18 inches of the top. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower and middle and upper decks. I'm going to bring a flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, Noah, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You're to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every bird, of every kind of animal, and every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You're to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God had commanded. Guys, I want to talk about this ark for you guys. I have a cool picture that Scott's going to put up there for us. This ark, it's not this typical bath toy. It's not this typical picture that we have. And so right here, I want to show you with this dimensions directly from the Bible how big this ark is and what it looks like. So we have this awesome video that our main pastor put together when they went through this series. Check it out. All right, that is our ark. So it's not a typical looking boat, guys. The whole point of it is to float. It's like a barge, a giant rectangle. There's 18 inches of ventilation at the top. It's not trying to go anywhere. It just needs to float. And guys, this thing that Noah was making for over 100 years, he didn't keep it in a garage. So that means everyone saw it. Probably people heard of him. For 100 years, this guy's making this giant thing that's no one ever done before. There's not like a boat place where they make boats. There's not like this place where they do stuff like that. He's just building this giant thing, and people are like, what the heck is going on? And you guys, the ark, the fact that it could be seen from everyone is a testament of how it's a symbol of the choice God gives people. Because you see, people are going to see this, they're going to hear about this, and they're going to have the ability to ask Noah, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And see, Noah, just by simply building the ark, by being obedient to God, by doing what God said, by choosing to follow him, is letting people know, hey, this is what's going on. I'm following this God. Also in the Bible, it says in 2 Peter 2 that Noah was a preacher of righteousness. So he's preaching through him building, but also by telling people this is what he's doing. This is who God is. Hey, come back, repent, turn back to God, stop being evil. Guys, just like Noah and the people of Noah, we have a choice as well. And this choice is the choice I'm talking about, the one choice that changes your life. It stirs your life from going this way, one destination, totally different direction. It's the choice to become a follower of God, to become a Christian. Not just a Christian that checks off a box, but a Christian that follows God, surrenders their life, saying, hey, you know better than me, I'm surrendering my life to you. A lot of times when we come and speak up here, the ones of us holding the microphone, we're talking about, okay, cool, you guys are Christians, here's how you live as a Christian. And sometimes we forget that maybe not all of us in here are Christians. Maybe not all of us have made that choice, have made that decision to step across that line. And guys, this is a choice that you have. You have a choice to follow God or to not, just like the people of Noah's time did, to get on that ark or to not. But guys, if you've made that choice to follow God, to become a Christian, you also have choices every day to follow God or to follow the world. That's your next thing to write down. You have choices every day to follow God or to follow the world. Like I said, being a Christian doesn't mean just check off a box. It's following God every day in the little things, in the big things, in obedience. Guys, Noah made a choice every day to follow God for the 120 years that he was building this ark. A lot of times we think, oh, Noah's so awesome, he's a hero because he followed God even when people made fun of him and mocked him and teased him, and he still built the ark. Guys, nowhere in the Bible does it say that he was mocked or made fun of or teased. That's just one of those things that we say and then we suddenly believe, but we haven't looked at it. Nowhere it says that. Guys, but even if he was mocked, even if he was made fun of, he still built the ark. But guess what? What if he was a celebrity? What if people are like, that's the cool guy. Hey, I'm friends with Noah. He's my neighbor. I see his ark. It's almost on my property. That's how big it is. Like, guys, if he was a celebrity, he could have given into his pride. He could have given into the fame. But instead, no, he still chose to be obedient. So regardless of whether he was mocked and made fun of or he was a celebrity, he chose to be obedient to God and to follow him instead of what the world was doing. Just like Noah, we have that choice every day. We have the choice to honor God with our words, to not cuss, to not gossip. And we don't do that not because it's like, that's what the rules say, that's what a Christian does. No, we do it as a response because God gave us breath in our lungs. God gave us our words. We choose to not cuss. We choose to not gossip as a response to what God has done for us, not because we have to. We choose to honor our parents, not because it's in the 10 Commandments, but we do it because God died for our parents too. God made our parents too. We choose to do that as a response, not because we have to. We choose to stay away from sexual sin, not because that's what Christians do, but because God promises that the Holy Spirit lives inside us, that our body is a temple. And because of what God has done for us, because Jesus died on the cross for us, we choose to abstain from sexual sin. You see, our choices that we have every day, a lot of times as Christians, we look at them like, this is what I have to do. But what if we chose to do that? Because it's a response to what God has done for us. Every day we have that choice. We see at the very end of the story that Noah still has those choices. Guys, the flood comes, everything's done, they get out of the boat, and the first thing Noah does is he builds an altar and sacrifices to God. They would make sacrifices to pay for the sins of people. And so even after this flood and watching everyone, hearing everyone die and all this devastation, he chooses to be obedient to God. Guys, he had to sacrifice an animal. He has the only animals on earth in his boat. Like, he trusted God in that moment. Later on in the story, we see that Noah chooses disobedience. He got drunk. See, every day we have choices to make, to follow God or to follow the world. Every day. As a Christian, if you've made that one choice, if you stepped over that line, you have choices every day as well to be obedient. But the only reason this is important, the only reason this has impact of like, okay, a choice, is because we need to understand that there is an eternal impact to your choice. You need to understand, this is your next thing to write down, that this is an eternal impact. There's an eternal impact, outcome to your choice. Eternal outcome, impact, same thing. The people of Noah's time, there was an outcome to their choice. Their choice to be evil. And we see this here in Genesis 7, starting at verse 11. It says, in the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day, all springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of heaven were open. The rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. If you jump down to verse 17, it says, for 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth. And as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heaven were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 20 feet. Every living thing that moved on the earth perished. Birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had breath of life in its nostrils died. Guys, that's not a Sunday school story. That's not this thing that we just color. Everything died. That was the outcome of their choice of evil. Death, by drowning, a flood. There is an outcome to their choice. A lot of times people think that this is the first time that it probably ever rained. It never says that. They might have experienced rain before and thought, it's no big deal. It might have been the first time it rained. but we know that it was a catastrophic, tragic event. I want you guys to think of tornadoes, tsunamis and hurricanes. Tornadoes are awful too. I want you guys to watch this video from Indonesia. It's from an actual tsunami that happened about 10, 15 years ago. Go ahead and check out this video. Guys, that means death. Their outcome was death. And guys, that choice that we make, that one choice to cross the line to become a Christian, to surrender our life to God, has an outcome that's eternal, that's even greater than death, even greater than a flood. You see, the outcome of if you don't choose to give your life to God is hell. It's eternal torment, damnation. I know that sounds like a bad word, but that's what it is. You see, in Romans 6:23, we have this verse for you guys we're going to throw up on the screen. In Romans 6:23, it says, the wages of sin is death. It's saying that you sin, you make mistakes, you're not perfect. Someone has to pay for that. The payment is death. If you don't accept Christ in your life, it's death, and you pay for that. But here's the thing, if you choose to give your life to Christ, if you choose to surrender over to him, you receive heaven, salvation. And it says in Romans 10:9, our next verse that we have for you guys, in Romans 10:9, we're going to throw that up there. It talks about this gift of heaven, this gift of choosing Christ. It says, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You will be saved when you choose to step over that line and become a Christian. But guess what? You get even more than that. You get adoption into his family. You get to be called a child of God, a son or a daughter of God. You get forgiveness. You get purpose. You get worth. You get value. You get a relationship. It's so much more than just heaven, a place that you get to go for eternity. There's so much more to it. In the Bible, we get promises. See, when you become a Christian, when you become a follower, a son or daughter of God, you receive the promises of God. We just finished a whole series on the promises that God has for us, the promises that he makes and the promises that he keeps. We see at the end of the story with Noah that God sends a promise through a rainbow that he's not going to flood the earth again. He sends promises that your family is going to increase in number and the descendants are going to come from you, that the Messiah will come from mankind through you. See, he receives promises and so do we. And I want to just make a clarification here to make sure you understand that when we're talking about choices, we're talking about that choice has an outcome, an eternal outcome, that choice for you to follow God. Because let's say you've taken that step to follow God, you're a Christian. Every day you still have choices to follow him. But let's say one day you choose to be disobedient and not obedient. It's not like, poof, you go to hell right away. Because you've given your life to Christ, because you followed him, when you make a mistake, when that everyday choice is wrong, you're covered by the blood of Jesus. Because the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God, eternal life in Jesus. So you're covered. That's covered for those who have given their life to Christ. It's not covered for everyone. But none of this matters, these things about choices or the impact of choices, if we don't understand that there is a deadline. That's your next thing to write down. There is a deadline. We all know what deadlines are. You have them with homework. You have to turn it on time. When you're an adult and you're over 18, you're going to know deadlines with bills and DMV and stuff, and you get charged tons of money if you don't do it in on time. So if you're a procrastinator like me, it's not really helpful to have deadlines. But guys, God has a deadline. God created mankind. He stood by for 1,600 years watching them evil. Every inclination of their heart, evil, only, all the time. And then 120 years more, he waits as Noah builds the ark, and the deadline hits, and people die. And it kind of seems like, wow, God's really mean. That's like not cool. Yeah, it's harsh. It shows that God's just. It shows that God's fair. But I think that deadline also shows that God is gracious and patient. Guys, he waited 1,600 years for people that were being evil and destroying each other. And then he waited another 120. You see, in verse Genesis 6:3, we're going to put that on the screen. We read this. We know it's another 120. He gives them a second chance, an extra deadline. Because this is when at the very beginning, the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he's mortal. And his days will be 120 years. I used to always think that means no one can be older than 120. That's not what it means. It means that in 120 years from when God said that statement, the flood would come. And it did. That was the deadline. People had the opportunity to turn, but they didn't. God gives us a deadline. But the thing about us is our deadline's unknown. That's your next thing to write down. Our deadline, it's unknown. Have you guys ever played the game Dumb Ways to Die? It's like on your phone or an app. I'm obsessed with it. I die every time. It's this game. It's just bizarre ways they died. I want to tell you guys some real ways that some people have died that are really weird. There was a 16-year-old boy from England with a personal hygiene and smelling fresh that he was like obsessed with smelling good. He died after being exposed to too many deodorant fumes. He died from his deodorant. Okay, there's a guy in Canada who had a beard that was 7 feet and 7 inches. And he normally kept that beard rolled up in a leather pouch. But one day he tripped because he was trying to escape from a fire and he died. Death by beard. The next thing is 2 friends were walking in a park one day and a thunderstorm came through and they got electrocuted because they had metal wiring in their bras. Death by bras. How many of you guys are going to wake up and think, man, my deodorant's going to kill me, or my junior high beard's going to kill me, or my bra is going to kill me? It's not the typical thing you wake up thinking. And it sounds silly, a little bit stupid, but the point is to show you guys that you don't know when, you don't know how, you don't know where you're going to die. Your deadline of when you're going to die is completely unknown. You see, it says in James 4:14, I have a verse for you guys. In James 4:14, it tells us that you don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. You can't predict the future. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while, and then it vanishes. Your life is short. It's a mist. You don't know when you're going to die. It could be tomorrow. It could be 5 years from now. It could be on the way home, 20 years from now when you're 90. You don't know. You also don't know the deadline of when Jesus is going to come back on the final day. See, the last book of the Bible, Revelation, talks about how Jesus is going to come back on the clouds, declare his victory, and bring back with him all those people who chose to follow him, to take that step. See, in Mark 13:32, it's a verse for you guys that I have on the screen. Mark 13:32 says, but about that day or hour, no one knows. That day or hour that Jesus is returning, no one knows about it. Not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, only the Father. So here's the thing. You're either going to die, or Jesus is going to come back. And you don't know when either of those things are going to happen. You don't. Your deadline's unknown. So procrastinating on taking that step to follow God, to become a Christian, to go all in, you don't know how much time you have left. Why are you waiting? Your deadline's unknown, but your destination, that can be known. So my challenge for you guys is to seriously ask yourself, your deadline's unknown, so do I know my destination? My deadline, it's unknown, so do I know my destination? Where am I going when I die? Guys, the flood teaches us 2 super important things about God and his character. It's that God is just. He hates sin, he's angry with it, and he's going to punish it. But it also shows that he's loving. He wants everyone to come and turn to him. Guys, you may have made this decision already. You're like, hey, this sermon was kind of pointless because I'm already a Christian. It shouldn't be pointless. It should be a reminder to you of how awesome God is, of how much he's done for you. But the other thing is, if you've already made this decision to be a Christian, are you living like it? Are you living like you know your deadline's unknown, that any day could be your last? Are you living like you know where your destination is? Are you living out those choices in obedience every day? God, guys, Jesus is the ark of our salvation today. Just like Noah was saved from the flood because of the ark, we are saved by grace through faith, not because of things we do, just because of our faith, of our choice to follow God. We're saved when we make that choice instead of following the world. So I encourage you guys, no matter where you're at, whether you've made that choice or whether you haven't, to think about, do I need to make that choice or am I living like that choice? Let's pray.